you so much for joining me on the Creative Awakening Now podcast. I'm your host, David Matters, and I'm here to bring you stories, interviews, and insights relating to the topics of creativity, inspiration, and practice. My intention is to connect with other people who employ a heart-centered approach to the artistic process and to share this profoundly inspiring content with anyone who cares to hear it. I hope you enjoy. This is a dream, and a dream is never the same. My guest this week was Noah Proudfoot. Drawing upon 10 years of experience in Asheville, Noah Proudfoot's heartfelt songs directly reflect the people, places, and rich culture of the area. Studied in poetry and certified as a yoga teacher, his lyrics aim to uplift and inspire, while shining an honest light on the challenges of being human. His band, Noah Proudfoot and the Botanicals, broadcast these messages on a much larger scale, using elements of funk, soul, and roots rock to deliver a dance party with a purpose. And for the past 2 years, they've been doing just that, making waves in the transformational festival scene and gathering a dedicated following of like-minded fans. And my interview with Noah was really great. He actually came to my house, my new spot in North Asheville, and came into my little music room here, and we had a little sit down, and it was great. He's a super chill, super great guy, a really fantastic musician. And I've known him for a little while now, since moving here, being in the same music scene, and playing some gigs in the same area, and so I've known about his music for a bit. And his new band, the Botanicals, they are about to release an EP at the end of August. So I wanted to bring him on and talk about that. And he got certified as a yoga teacher, and he's doing some kind of like music yoga collaboration. So we talked about that stuff, and I got him to play 3, I believe, live songs, just him and the acoustic guitar, which were really great. It turned out super awesome, I thought. And we go into all that and kind of dig into his story and kind of what inspires him as a songwriter and as a musician in general. And we get into some good juicy topics in there, so that was really nice. And I always like to find out, like, we talk about the songs that he sings and like the lyrics, and he tells the story of a couple of them, and how they came about and what inspired him. And that's the kind of stuff I really like to get into with this show, is to kind of go deep into the behind the scenes stuff where the real inspiration comes out of, and kind of use that as fuel for other people, and hoping that it'll inspire their creativity and whatever endeavors that they may be embarking on. And for me alone, just hanging out with him for an hour or so for the interview was super great. I got inspired. He plays a really nice style that I don't play so much of, and so just hearing that was nice for me. It was soothing in a way, mind expanding. So I appreciated that, and I hope you guys will check out all his stuff on his website and the band's website. And like I said, they are playing that EP release show, I do believe, at Asheville Music Hall. He talks about it in the interview, so I'll let him tell you. But that's coming up in August sometime, and that's sure to be a super great show. So I hope you guys will look into it. Noah Proudfoot and the Botanicals. And I hope you guys enjoy this interview. Please check out creativeawakeningnow.com. Check out my blog and my music for my band Life Like Water. And sign up for the mailing list. That would be great. Get yourself a little copy of my ebook. It's real short, about my travels in Peru and some sacred medicine and some creativity that came through that. And it's kind of a poetic kind of thing to inspire you. And all that good stuff. Please, if you want to help out the podcast, go to iTunes, leave a review, leave a rating. That would be super helpful. Subscribe. That's really a big key as well. All these things that everyone talks about, and we harp on all the time because nobody really does it. But it's very essential to get our message out there and get our shows out to the wider world. So I hope you guys will do that, and just stay connected. Let's build this community, and let's keep on expanding this. It's more and more people are coming on for this show, and like a broader spectrum of things. So I'm really pumped about that, and expanding it outside of. I love doing the ones in Asheville because I can do them in person, but I'm doing them all over the place. So I got some really cool guests coming up. So all the same stuff I always say, so I'll just cut it here and let you guys enjoy the interview. Thank you so much for listening. Much love. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and thank you, Noah, for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me, David.
Yeah, man. I'm very glad to have you here. I'm usually introducing people, and I'm going to them, so it's cool you came to me. It feels very special.
Neighbors.
Oh, yeah, right?
Almost.
Well, I definitely am familiar with your music to a degree, and I know a little bit about your whole path, but maybe you could kind of start us off from the beginning. What's relevant to you as a musician, as a creative person, what your history has looked like, and how that has brought you to where you are today.
Sure. Well, I started playing at 13. It was a band called Dispatch that you may be familiar with.
Dispatch? Yeah.
Dispatch. Mm-hmm. And I remember my brother playing them, the music coming through his door, and I was really struck by the harmonies, and so got my first guitar at 13, and kind of got my feet wet in the punk rock scene of St. Louis, Missouri. Had a band there, and since then I think it's been a process of taking these songs that lean towards the songwriter genre and applying them to a full band, and now what we have is Noah Proudfoot and the Botanicals, which is a bigger collective of musicians that are helping to bring these songs to more people on a larger level, and finding that sweet spot of being able to reach people from all different kinds of niches and walks of life. Asheville is a really sweet bubble in its own, with a lot of really neat cultural aspects to it, and reaching people outside that bubble is what interests me a lot.
Cool. I didn't know you were in the punk rock scene. That's where I was too.
Nice.
It's funny how many people in like soft music or like folk music now kind of started out in this like really aggressive sounding, fast paced kind of things. But
yeah, it's good for the 16-year-old soul.
It really is. It's a lot of cathartic release and stuff. What? I always like to kind of probe into people's process, and especially when you start out, like, what was it that really inspired you besides Dispatch playing through the wall? But as like a player, did you start with electric guitar or acoustic guitar?
My parents had an acoustic player come over and taught me a few lessons, and so I started on acoustic, and I think that seemed to fit the rootsy essence I was getting from Dispatch, so I wanted to emulate that and play the general for people. So I started on electric and then got a little more into punk, and I think it was Zach Christmas asked for an electric, and always wrote on on acoustic, and then kind of transferred over to electric.
Okay, nice. What was did you start songwriting right away, or was it more of like covers and playing other people's music and learning in that way?
Yeah, it was like Counting Crows covers and Blues Traveler, and but then once I got the electric, I started writing some punk songs, kind of in the vein of like NoFX and Bad Religion, MXPX. So yeah, that's how songwriting took form in that way.
And then eventually kind of transitioned into doing your own stuff.
Yeah, it kind of slowed down. I think my junior year in high school hit more of the coffee shop scene and open mics, and kind of went back to my acoustic roots.
Cool. Mm-hmm. At what point did you move to Asheville?
That was in 2007, my senior year in high school.
Cool. Your whole family moved?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah, there's something about Asheville that it brings out a lot of creativity in people, it seems, like this area, and it maybe, I don't know, for me personally, when I came, I had lived a lot of different places and played a bunch of different kind of music, but as soon as I came here, it was like there was this calling to just try something new, try to play something different, and I was looking around the scenes trying to figure out what it was like, originally was coming from Colorado was bluegrass and old time. Mm-hmm. And I kind of checked out the scene here, and there's definitely a big scene for that, but it felt so removed from my Colorado roots, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I started looking around more in the folk scene, and then the big thing that really got me was world music around here. There's a big West African community of musicians that come through, and a lot of different stuff from different parts of the world that seems to thrive in this little bubble, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of has inspired me to transition my music, and I'm just curious if that kind of happened to you when you came down here, if it propelled you into what you're doing now, or if that was kind of like something you took with you already.
I think the unification of social justice and environmental justice, the people that come here in order to learn more about the earth and herbs and sustainable living, I think that has had a huge effect on the music, and being really inspired by people and artists that weave those worlds together. There's a organization called Soul and Soil that I did a benefit for, and so it's not necessarily like a genre of music, but kind of the message underneath what they're doing, and their artists that have an organization. And so I think in that way, coming here and seeing the deeper pulse beneath people's musical projects was really the point of inspiration that has still stuck with me. In terms of genre, I think I just kind of stick with blues and soul. I mean, we do play with a steel pan player, so in that sense, there's a lot of interesting instrumentation you can pull from in this town. You could have a hammered dulcimer player next to an electric violinist or something and make it work.
Yeah, totally. Well, that's just as relevant, the inspiration that comes from other sources, not just like musical genres and stuff. And some people it's social justice, other people it's poetic expression, like I have something to say that's a lot of times sadness or pain or things like that. So it's always interesting to get into that realm of creativity, and songwriting is so unique in that way because you're doing something expressive just through the music, and it kind of fits what you're singing about, but you're also directly saying something that people can hear and they know what you're talking about, and I always love to dig into that and find out where, what people are trying to say, and like how that's brought through with the music. And like you said, you do like blues, funk, soul kind of stuff, and it's interesting to see music that has this dancey, fun vibe, but it also has like a deep meaning to it, and that's something that drew me to your music, was having this like undercurrent of at least like a somewhat conscious kind of like, oh, I care about the earth, I care about human relationships, and like this is how I want to express it. If you would be down, maybe you would share a song with us. You got your guitar,
sure,
something whatever you want really, but if you have anything that kind of fits into that mold of like your feelings and things.
Sure. Well, I'm feeling pretty excited about this track. It's actually being mastered right now, and it's our single on the EP. So it just feels right that under the full moon, I'll go ahead and share it. Ride your bike across the country, smile at everyone you pass, rest your feet in Mother Ocean, yeah, turn to the east and pedal right back, walk your feet down forest highways, nothing but your trusting man, come upon a teepee village, yeah, just in time for the full moon dance. It don't matter where you roam, knowing that the heart is home. Now there's never been a better time to go. Travel light, love heavy, I got my faith to propel me. Travel light, love heavy, Your hunger's deeper than you knew. A couple camping on the shoreline has an extra cup of traveler's stew, and it's all for you. It don't matter where you roam, knowing that the heart is home. Now there's never been a better time to go. Travel light, love heavy. I got my faith to propel me. Travel light, love heavy. And you can bring your friends if they're ready. Travel light with your love so heavy. Bringing your friends if you think they're ready. Travel light, travel on. Traveling light through a land exotic. Bringing your friends if you think they've got it. Travel light, travel on. Work your way across the mainland, picking flowers where you go. Pretty soon your hands are heavy, yeah. A big bouquet for your friends back home. It don't matter where you roam, knowing that the heart is home. Now there's never been a better time to go. Travel light, love heavy. I got my faith to propel me. Travel light, love heavy. And you can bring your friends if they're ready.
Nice. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I really like the groove of it. You know, it's just so driving. It fits the pedaling and traveling theme.
Yeah.
Kind of moves along with it. Can you talk about that song a little bit? Like maybe
Sure,
the inspiration of it. And...
Well, at the time I was taking a jazz guitar class at UNCA. So I was being opened up to all these new progressions, like minor sevens and major sevens that I wasn't ever really familiar with. So it started with, I just loved that progression there. And so that was kind of in my bones. And then all these other like progressions. So I kind of threw it all together. And I was coming out of a yoga class downtown and met this guy who had come out of the class as well, and he got on his bike and we were talking, and it turns out he had biked all the way from Portland to Asheville and was on his way to DC, and he just had like 2 saddlebags.
Wow.
And I think as a 19-year-old that really made a big impression on me, and the freedom that I felt from him and what he was traveling with. And so I think that phrase kind of dropped in at that moment in meeting him, and so I took it back to these chords. And the thing just, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced when songs just write themselves, and this was one that I don't even really remember much of the writing process because it seems like it just came out pretty formed. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to talk about is that, you know, where inspiration comes from, and like when it strikes, you know, you don't ask questions. You just grab a guitar, you grab a pen, and you start writing. You know, and that feeling, it's hard to explain to anyone if they haven't been in it, but you can relate it to so many things. You know, some people call it the flow state, or they call it, you know, being in the zone, or, you know, in like meditative terms, you know, it's like entering into like a samadhi state where it's like one pointed concentration. And I always kind of mesh this kind of little, this tangled up ball of information in my head there. It's like creativity, music, songwriting, but then there's also like my spiritual practice and things like that. And they always collide in this really interesting way because it's almost like a religious experience when you're fully inspired and you're writing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that happen where you sit down and you just know there's a song coming, and you sit down and you put that pen to paper until it comes out fully, which sounds like that's what happened with that one. But the more interesting thing is when that doesn't happen, you know. And there's times where you're like, I'm gonna write a song, and you go to sit down and there's just nothing. Nothing comes out, you know. It's you know, it's not there, it's not ready for you, and you wonder like, where does that come from? Do you have any experiences like that?
Yeah, I find that some songs you just have to labor through them, and it might take 2 hours to get out 2 verses, but if you can feel good about those 2 verses, I think it's totally warranted and worth it. And then some songs just write themselves, and some come out easier, some are more difficult to chisel through, and maybe you get to the end of them and they still don't feel quite complete. But I think just to be able to check that box and say that, you know, I gave this song my best shot, even though it may not feel as organic as other songs. I think as a songwriter, that's just a great practice. And if it never makes its way onto the album, it's good just to express that idea or that riff or that feeling or that moment and kind of catalog it and move on so that you can get back into that, back to riding that wave whenever it comes. And, you know, sometimes the muse is quiet for a while, and you just gotta chisel away at what you got. So it's a practice.
I exactly. I think that element of like chiseling through it and just kind of like putting in the effort regardless, even if it's one verse or a riff, because then later down the line that might be incorporated into a new song or something that comes along. But it's that sense of pushing through the hard times, I feel like, that opens you up more and like kind of prepares you for the times where it just flows into you. You know, and that's been my experience, and a lot of people that I've talked to had similar feelings about it, where it's like if you didn't do anything, it's like, oh, I'm not inspired, so I'm just not gonna play, I'm not gonna write, I'm not gonna paint, you know. It builds up this, you know, this level, this like residue on you that's like makes it harder and harder for the true inspiration to come through. And then next thing you know, it's been a year since you've even touched your instrument or whatever, you know?
Oh gosh,
it's extreme, but it does happen. You know, I've been through dry spells where it's like I just get so frustrated I put it all down, and then when I go back to it, I'm like, I don't really know if that was actually the right thing to do. You know, it's like you can't force things, but you also can't just like walk away from it because you're not inspired. You have to get in there and do it.
Yeah.
I think that the time frame of things too, you know, you said you met this kid when you were 19. How old are you now?
28.
Okay, so that was some time ago. And you just wrote this song for your new album, or it's something that you've been percolating on for a while?
The only addition we made to this song was the pre-chorus, little 4-chord pre-chorus. Other than that, it's been formed since 2008 or 9.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so it's bringing it full circle to have it done with the full band and release as our single.
Yeah, man, that's really cool. It's a great song.
Thank you.
I want to ask you about singing. You have a really great voice, and you have a good way of putting it into your music. You know, it's not like it suits what you're playing, I feel. Did you start singing around the same time you were playing music, or were you in chorus or something like that? Or
yeah, you know, that's interesting because I have to kind of think back on that moment and wonder when I did start to experiment with my voice. And I think my dad used to sing. He has a very bluesy voice as well, and my sister sings. And I think I just remember singing, being present in the household, whether it was singing along to like 90s tunes like Sister Hazel. I have a memory of us like parading around the house singing the harmonies to Sister Hazel, like hard to say what it is. And so
that's some family connection right there.
Totally. And yeah, once I picked up the guitar, I just started knocking out all my favorite covers at the time. And so yeah, it kind of came hand in hand. And then it was talent shows And so I kind of learned along with the guitar.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, 'cause I feel like singing is such an interesting thing too that people don't really think about. Like it's its own instrument. You have to practice. You have to expand yourself and work with different techniques. And I was very late in the game with singing. Like I started out in the punk rock scene, metal scene, and did that for the first, I don't even know, maybe not that long, 3 or 4 years at least of my musical life was screaming. Like really hard screaming kind of metal stuff. And it wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I got away from all that. I started traveling. I met all these different travelers who were playing folk music and old time music, and I was like, I'd really like to play music that I don't have to scream, and like play this loud, aggressive stuff. It's just, jam around with other people. So I started experimenting with my voice, and it was such a hurdle for me because I think I probably damaged it a lot from screaming, first of all, but I never thought of the voice as an instrument. I always thought people can sing or they don't sing, and when it comes to screaming in punk rock music, it's also its own skill that you have to develop, but not everyone can do it, It's just like you have to be on board, I guess, to put your voice through that. So yeah, it's an interesting thing that I always notice in people because it's something I respect a lot. That I guess singing when you're young, especially with family, it's probably a lot more like prevalent in your life, and it's just kind of part of who you are, and maybe you don't think about it as much, but it's something that I've definitely put a lot of thought into, where it's like it's a really powerful instrument that when you hone it enough, it people connect with it. The physiology, like we all have a voice, but to hear somebody like have command of it is really captivating, I think. So it's cool to share that. I would love to talk about your new endeavor, or newish, at least that I've seen, with music and yoga. You got certified as a yoga teacher, is that right?
Right. Yes, a few months ago at the Yoga Bridge in Black Mountain. It was just a thought swirling around in my head, thinking that I'd like to kind of take myself up on some kind of healing modality here in Asheville, since there's so many great teachers around. I thought, okay, well, I want to get my Jedi training on, and I'm open to however that comes. And so yeah, I found a flyer, and it was like a super deal on a 6-month course in Hatha Yoga, a very traditional vein of yoga. And so I've been teaching Thursdays at the Om Sanctuary, and I've been having other songwriters and artists come in and play. Robin Lewis is a local songwriter that I've had in a couple times. Also Allison Zopel doing kirtan. And so I'll teach and play some Native American flute, and then they'll play music throughout the class. And it really creates a really intimate, sweet space for people to connect with themselves in.
Yeah, I really appreciate the bridging the gap of of music and a more contemplative practice like that. It lends itself so well to it. We all know what it feels like to be absorbed in music, but to use that absorption into to transition into something else is really cool. And there's a big community for that around here. I've had several sound healers and yoga teachers and different things on my show, and there's always this deep connection and respect to the creative process as well, lending itself to that contemplative practices. Is it something for you that was just like a natural process? You're like, music makes sense to me, I want to apply it, or was it more of like you started doing yoga and then seeing it that way?
Well, the training was a third asanas, a third kirtan chants, and then a third philosophy studying of yogic principles. And so the chanting and the kirtan, also having the kirtan background, just made sense instantly. So throughout the yogic, or throughout the training, we were chanting every day, and we'd be doing, not necessarily kirtan, but chanting. So it totally made sense to weave those two. And there was a section we did called the Yoga of Sound. It was a weekend retreat, and I just understood chanting in a kind of on a cellular level, without being able to really intellectualize why it felt so good in my spirit. And I'd done kirtan, for a few years performing, but I think actually to let him lead and take the class through the chants allowed me to let go and not have to be the performer on stage, but to allow someone to teach me and express to me their way of coming to kirtan. And in that way, I understood it on like I said, a deeper level. And in terms of how I'm applying it to the class, it creates a nice unified element to have two people at the front of the class helping to create a nice bubble of good vibes.
Yeah, I can feel that for sure. Do you play any of your music in it, or is it mostly you have other people come in? And...
I don't. The only thing I do is Native American flute to open, and then they kind of take the reins.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Do you have any music that, when I think about combining like yoga and stuff, it's got to fit the vibe, obviously. It's got to have this kind of like, I don't know. I don't want to make assumptions about it, actually, because I've been to yoga classes where there's more like modern music, and it's actually pretty cool. It ends up being a different experience. It like drives you more. But at the same time, there's a certain kind of thing that connects the mindful contemplative practice with music. And I'm just curious if you write anything in that vein, if you've been inspired by that, or if it's mostly separate.
I do have some Sanskrit songs that I've been writing, and I don't think I feel in order to release those, I really have to connect deeply with the words more deeply and kind of do my own study and practice with them, because I think that these Sanskrit words and chants are really powerful, and I don't want to throw them around too lightly, because they do shift energy in people and have real power to them. There are songs I do, I call them heart songs, that are more campfire, singing with friends and the tribe and the community, that are sweet, because I kind of compartmentalize those as like those intimate nights, under the moon, when it's your good friends, and that's the time to break that song out. But for the EP, I try to open it up to kind of cast a wider net to reach people. I do have some heart songs, and I haven't played them yet for yoga classes, but... Yeah. And I've got one on the last album, too. Living in Love, I think, was one of those campfire songs that made its way onto the album.
Cool. Yeah. What was your last album? Just a solo endeavor, or was that...
It was largely a folk album with a few bluesy songs, kind of one reggae-themed song. But I did have guest artists play, and we have some songs that have like a full band on it, different artists. Rob Lenfesty, who played keys on this upcoming EP, played on the last one. I think he was the only artist from the last album that played on this upcoming one. But yeah, it's got a full band sound, but also some very sentimental singer-songwriter tracks.
So that kind of like separates what you're doing now, because this is like full band.
Yeah, but it still definitely has the narratives and the storytelling, and you can still gather the songwriting element from it. Like I said, the stories and the narratives. Yeah.
Well, do you have another song that you would maybe be down to share that would kind of...
Sure.
I mean, whatever. You can play it from any vein or any time period of your life. But
I think, this is a song where the lyrics take less precedence as opposed to the overall groove and vibe. I think I was really feeling inspired by Stevie Wonder in writing this one.
Nice.
And so, I think it's that notion again of casting a wide net and creating a space that a large group of people can feel comfortable in without steering them towards one idea or another, but just kind of throwing out ideas and messages. And this is kind of a fun and light one that we like to do. This is called Good Things. Well, it's a sunny day skies are blue. Girl riding her bike down the avenue. I got a feeling that the secret to life ain't a secret at all, or as elusive as we'd like to believe. And I'm no philosopher by any means, but I see a pattern, I see a trend. I see no reason for the season of my love into it. Good things happen, could you open your heart? Find out where freedom starts. Yeah, good things happen, could you open your eyes? Some kind of love on all six sides of me. Well, it's a windy day in Central Park. Boy flying his kite long after dark. I got a feeling that the secret to life ain't a secret at all, or as elusive as we'd like to believe. And I'm no Pythagoras or Socrates, but I see a pattern, I see a trend. I see no reason for the season of my love into it. Good things happen when you open your heart. Find out where freedom starts. Good things happen when you open your eyes. Some kind of love on all six sides of me. Oh, love, take a hold of me, root in the soul of me, bring out the gold in me, never let go of me. 40 nights I waited alone for your touch, just a brush, for a simple taste of timelessness, upgraded consciousness, to see the world from the clear view of an eagle's nest. I do my best on this earthly quest, and I leave it up to you now, love, to do the rest. It's just another day in the big blue house. Puppy was born, cat killed a mouse. I got a feeling that the secret to life ain't a secret at all, or as elusive as we'd like to believe. And I'm no philosopher by any means, but I see a pattern, I see a trend. I see no reason for the season of my loving to end. Good things happen, could you open your heart? Find out where freedom starts. Good things happen, could you open your eyes? Some kind of love on all six sides. Some kind of love on all six sides of me. Some kind of love on all six sides of me.
Nice, man. Love it.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really great melody. I think and that's on your new album?
Yeah.
With the full band? That's awesome. You said that you think that the lyrics take a little bit of a back seat in this one, but I don't know. That
I was kind of thinking too. I was like, no, this one's kind of got the new age flair on it. I'm like, okay, never mind.
But I understand what you mean. Like, it's the subtlety of it. It's like, hey, like, it's not as elusive. It's not as much of a secret as you actually think. Good things. But that's some of my favorite kind of material where it's like, this isn't serious as you think. Like, this isn't like, here's what I believe and shoving it down your throat. It's like life is, and I recognize that. I appreciate that. It's a cool song, man. Could you maybe share a little bit of just about the process of that one? And it's pretty. Your lyrics are cool. It's like telling a story. It's pretty self-explanatory where it comes from, but.
Thanks. Yeah, it's funny. I think it probably must have. Oh yeah, no. I was. I wrote this riff with my friend Glenn. Glenn Yoder. He's over in Winston-Salem playing with the band, Soul Jam. But he was over one weekend, and we were tinkering around on the keys, and this one came out, and I think it started with a key line that he had, and then I transposed it or translated to guitar. So it's got a lot of minor or a lot of sevens in it, and chromatic walk-ups. That's him.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of chord changes going on, a lot of cool colors coming out of it.
Yeah, I definitely need to give him credit for that. So.
Awesome. I dig the I don't know, yeah, like I could see like Stevie Wonder. It's got like this funky soul feel, but it's also really playful.
Yeah, I think that's the best. When we're just as artists, I think we're either wanting to translate or transmit good vibes or really honest vibes. And so yeah, this is kind of just a good vibe song.
Yeah. Those are, two really important points that I often encounter when I start talking to people about, their inspiration, not just musically, for anything, where it's like authenticity and good vibes, obviously, too. But I think authenticity and just trying to be your honest self and express a true feeling is a large goal, and it's also a really difficult goal because you don't want to get too complicated. You don't want to get too flamboyant with it because then it doesn't connect so well. But it's also got to have, it's got to ring true to who you are, and it's got to put a piece of your life in it, which is what's so cool about songwriting. I think that it shows things about you. Somebody could never have met you before, but listening to that song, like not just the words in it, but the feel of it shows like, oh, he's kind of a funky dude. He's got kind of a funky soul. Like I could feel something good coming out of that. So I think that you were successful in your mission.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, man. So we've been going for a little while now, and I don't want to keep you too long, but I always like to ask if there's any advice or a little nugget of wisdom that you could share, especially about songwriting, but life in general, whatever you'd like to throw out there as a yoga teacher or whatever, that if anyone was listening to this and they're like, oh man, like I'm inspired, that's what I'm trying to do, is provide inspiration for people. And if there was a little bit of that you could just kind of sum up and share with people, do you have anything that you could throw out there?
In terms of songwriting?
Yeah, I think songwriting is most applicable for what we're talking about here. It's...
Yeah. Well, I'd say if there's something that you're passionate about, make it your love, make it your partner, and go as far into it as you can. And I don't think there's too much time you can ever spend on an art or on a passion, personally. I put a lot of energy into the music and the art, and I think I'm most inspired when I see other people dedicating their entire lives to their gift, because we're all given unique, separate gifts. We're kind of like the fingers on the hand. We're all traced back to a core, which I like to think is kind of a universal mind that's expressing itself through all these different channels, and only you can express, David Matters, and only I can express Noah Proudfoot. And so I think to ride that highway as far down as it goes, and really find find your voice and find your art and your creative expression if that calls to you. Other people's art is raising a family, and they put all their energy and passion into, raising a daughter or a son, and sculpting their lives as an artist, an artist of life. So, yeah, if there's anything I had to say, just keep going with whatever you're doing, and know that the pursuit of art is a marathon. It's a long-term goal. And a lot of my favorite artists, their music, Nick Drake, his music didn't get picked up until he was dead. Elliott Smith, a lot of poets die, and nobody hears of their work for decades. So end of podcast. No. But yeah, you just got to keep going, and do it for yourself first, and then I think it'll benefit others by default if you keep following that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's definitely like the essence of it. You have to connect with it personally, deeply, and it's got to be transformative for you in your life and in your
Transmorbited?
Is that what I said? I hope I didn't. Transmorbited is a new word that I'm putting in here. But transformation is also one of them. I think that's a very important thing. You got to connect to it personally, and you got to love it and do it because you love it, and it only increases over time, and that's what people connect to. Do you have anything like, do you practice often with songwriting, guitar playing, singing, anything like that? I mean, do you have like a regiment or a strict pattern? Some people are like very every day, some people are more like when it hits me,
Yeah, I'm realizing that my strengths are in songwriting and lyrical composition. So I tried to get into a practice with practicing scales and like technical skills, but I really feel like what comes easiest to me is the writing of it. So when I can sit down and write and try to carve out a song, I think that's what I consider my practice and my strength. So yeah, I can. It always feels a little forced for me when I sit down to practice like scales. My way of practicing is setting up a riff on the loop station and then soloing it over it, or like unlocking patterns on the fretboard. But yeah, it kind of sounds lame, but the practice thing has never really sunk in with me, and maybe there's a reason to that. Maybe the art form is meant to be a little more spontaneous in its unfolding, and sometimes it's nice to maybe, this might sound strange, but limit your skill set so you really work with what you have. I don't know. That's a thought that's still developing in my mind.
I think that's actually really good. I've had a very similar experience with that, where at one point in my life I took on way too much musically. I was fronting a band vocally. I was playing banjo for that band. I was playing guitar for that band, and I was playing two different kinds of banjo, like 3-finger and claw hammer, and I wasn't focusing on anything, any one thing, and everything started to suffer because of it eventually. Because if I wasn't inspired, it was like, even when I was inspired, I didn't really know where to put it, and it took a while. Like, I did a lot and I learned a lot because of pushing myself in all those directions, but I had a very similar realization where I was like, what I'm really passionate about right now is this thing, so I'm going to focus on it. And I'm not going to worry that I didn't practice my banjo scales today. I'm not going to worry that I didn't, work on trying vocal harmonies or whatever it is. Like, I'm just going to do what strikes me. So I think I can kind of understand that to a degree. Everyone's got their own process, and I think what's important is just to stick with it. You obviously have been doing it long enough. You know what works for you, and you've written a ton of music, so it's not like it's failing you in some way. Your new band, you got the new album you just recorded. You're about to release it soon, right?
Yes, we are. August 24th. It's a Friday at the Asheville Music Hall with our good friends Hustle Souls and Sister Ivy, which was a former, technically housemate of mine, lived in an artist community. So she's got a neo soul band, really great. So they'll be opening up the night, and then we'll bring it home.
Awesome. And that's Uh, it's a full length or it's an EP?
It's an EP,
Okay.
5 songs.
That's what I thought. I didn't want to step out and tell full
Yeah.
length, but
Yeah.
awesome. And this is a new project for you, right? Pretty recently, within the last year or two or something.
Yeah, well, it's comprised of my good friend Brady Williams on steel drum, and we've been jamming together for like 4 years, and also my brother on drums. So of course we've been playing music forever, but the band really coalesced. Well, we have a new lineup, Rob Lanfisti on keys, Kyle Nuccelli on bass, and that's come into the fold just like a month ago.
Yeah, you were telling me you didn't have a bass player like
Yeah.
a couple months ago. That's awesome, man. So you got it all kind of worked out for this, and you
Yep.
just did a tour?
Yeah. Ben and I went up to New York and Massachusetts, see some family, connect with some old friends, and that was really nice because a lot of the family supported the Kickstarter, which funded this EP. So it felt really right to go kind of pay homage to them and show them that we're really continuing to pursue this and that we're serious. So that just felt nice, like before releasing the album, to go see family and check in with them and see them in person after they helped us so much on the CD. And yeah, New York was great, man. Harlem, really great community there.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's good to see. I've been watching the whole process for you guys, the Kickstarter and the release, and now you got the album coming out and stuff, so it's really exciting. Definitely pumped for you and excited to hopefully check it out. I want to be there.
Cool.
You have a website or anything you want to share with people or other upcoming shows or anything like that?
Sure. You can follow our music at Noah Proudfoot Music on Instagram and Noah Proudfoot in the Botanicals Instagram. I will get the password to the second account sometime from my brother. And yeah, we're on Facebook, noahproudfoot.com. Got some stuff on YouTube. And if you're in the Asheville area, come to a yoga class Thursday nights at the Om Sanctuary.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's exciting times. I really appreciate you coming on, man. It's really great conversations. What do you think about leaving us with one more song?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. Yeah, this is a super simple one. I was looking at myself in the mirror and got hit with this phrase, broken but beautiful.
Oh,
And it really summed it up for me in that moment.
awesome.
So this is kind of a last minute addition to the CD. We had another song in mind, but then we thought, you know what, this one works well. So it was an uphill climb today, no doubt about it, no way around it, no tunnel through. I shook hands with my demons, I plumbed the depth of my feelings, but I feel a little better just sitting here talking to you. Broken but beautiful, lost but not for long. Broken but beautiful, it's the hard times that make us strong. And even the sun was slow to rise today, dark clouds around it, some even doubted that a ray could break through. I turned to the struggling sea, darkness is the fuel that it needs to usher forth a new life as a tree. Broken but beautiful, lost but not for long. Broken but beautiful, it's the hard times that make us strong. So keep moving on, I better keep singing your song. Keep moving on, I better keep singing your song. Though I may not be feeling too high today, knee deep in sadness, gone is my gladness, shaking is my peace. Down in the thick of it all is where we find the strength to stand tall, rising up like a lotus from the deep, broken but beautiful, lost but not for long, broken but beautiful. It's the hard times that make us strong. So keep moving on, but baby, keep singing your song. But keep moving on, but baby, keep singing your.
Awesome. It's great, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate your honesty with your music and the message that comes through of just, humility. Like, it's good stuff. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Well, like I said, I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for driving over here to see me.
Yeah, thanks for the blueberries and strawberries.
Yeah, man, they're delicious. Well, I hope to catch some of your music in the future, and I hope you all will check out Noah Proudfoot and the Botanicals. And stay tuned. Thanks, you all, for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Gathering lessons and falling